Hello, this is Daniel, and today I am going to show you how to program and operate your NVC-2. Now, the NVC-2 is a controller in our natural series, and it allows you to control your curtains and possibly a heater if you want to. Let's start with a quick overview of the physical control itself. Popping it open here, we can see we've got our power terminals. Here I have the AC version, but we do also have a 12 and 24 volt DC version if you would prefer to power the control off those voltages instead. But here I've got my AC power plugged in, and then we can see we have open terminals, closed terminals, and heater terminals. And then I've got my temperature sensor already wired in. Of course, I don't have a heater or curtains wired in, as this is just the demo unit. On the back of the display, we can see here, we've got our alarm terminal if you want to set up an alarm, and also an optional rain sensor input terminal there. And then finally, a USB port here for firmware updates, though at this point, this is a mature product, so there shouldn't really be many updates coming out at this time. So let's take a look at how we program the NVC-2. So right now, main menu, right now we're seeing the temperature reading there. Then let's cycle through, and the first things we go through, there's a couple of manual overrides here, and we'll get to those at the end. First thing that we will start off with is how to set your set point. Now, in here, we've got two options. We've got the set point, or if we want to use a growth curve, we've got the clock and growth curve options. So for the set point, if we hit enter, then we can set our set point. Right now it's set at 70 degrees. Easy enough. You can edit that. Oops, there we go. And then we can use up and down arrows to edit that. If we do not want to use a set point, but rather we want to have a set point that is moving and adjusting itself, and we want to automate that, we can use the growth curve. So first off, actually, we would want to set our clock. So if we go in here, we can see 2:51 is the current time. You'll want to adjust that so that it is what your actual current time is. If I were to hit enter, you can see I can adjust that time. Then I will go back and back. All right, so there's our clock setting. And once we've set our time to the correct time, then we can go into the growth curve menu. So in here, first thing we've got is enable. So if we enter here, by default, it is off. But if we want to use it, we'll have to turn it on. So we'll turn it on, press enter. And then now, when we scroll down, we can select what our current day is. So if we go in there, right now, it's day 1, but you could adjust it if you're not starting on day number 1. Looks like we can go all the way up to day 44 is the maximum number of days. Then we'll go back, and then you can start setting up your set points. So you've got your step number 1 starts on day 1, and then if we would go down, step number 1, temperature. So here you can select on day 1 your set point temperature would be 85. And then if we would go down, step number 2 day, Okay, so now our step number 2 starts on day 4. If you want to adjust that, again, up arrow, down arrow. We can set it to 5 and then go back. Step 2, temperature. We're going down to 80 degrees. Same thing, you can adjust it up or down. Go back, and you can keep going. We've got step 3, step 4, 5, and 6. So up to 6 steps and 365 days that we've got on here. For now, I am actually just going to disable this growth curve and have it running off of the set point instead. So that is how you set up your growth curve and your set point. Next on the list is our on duration. So before I go into the next set of settings, I think I will give a brief explanation of how we actually control the curtains with the NVC-2. So basically we have the set point, and then we're going to have on and off durations for both our open and our close relays, as well as an idle band. So how it works is you'll set up your set point, and then you'll set up your idle band, which is the number of degrees above and below your set point, in which your curtains are going to be idle. They're not going to open, they're not going to close, they're just going to stay where they are at right at that time. If your temperature rises above your idle band or below your idle band, then your curtains are going to either open or close. If the temperature goes above, then they're going to open, allowing in more cool air and hopefully cooling things off so that the temperature will drop back into that idle band. And if the temperature goes below your idle band, if it's too cold, then you're going to close and hopefully help warm up your barn or your greenhouse, because these are often used in greenhouses as well. How long your curtain runs for, that is set by the on duration. So when your curtain is opening, it'll run for however long our open on duration is. And then we also have an off duration. So this is how long the curtain is just going to wait. It's not going to read the temperature. It's just going to wait. And once it has waited for that off duration, then it will read the temperature again. And then it will decide, has the temperature adjusted? Is it in the idle band? Do I just stay here? Or do I need to make another adjustment? And if it does need to adjust again, it's going to run again for, opening or closing, whichever it needs to do again for that on duration. Looks like we need to zip through here. Okay, open on. So here we've got 20 seconds. So right now it'll run for 20 seconds, and we could bump that up to 30 seconds, we'll say. And actually make sure we hit the check mark to save that rather than just hitting back like I first did. We can see here, we saved it. The next setting is, of course, the open off duration. So right now it's set. It will open for 30 seconds, and then it's going to wait for 3 minutes. This gives time for your building to, well, if we're opening, it gives time for your building to cool off, to adjust because of the change in where your curtains are at. And then it's going to read the temperature again and see, does it need to open more, or is it okay with, your curtains only being partially open? So 180 seconds, that's good. I can save it as that. And then the next thing, now we've got close on duration. So you can set it up differently. Let's say our on duration for close, I actually want them to be more aggressive in closing because we want to make sure that things aren't getting too cold. If you're in a greenhouse, you don't want your plants freezing. So I'm going to be a bit more aggressive. I'm going to close for 45 seconds. So if it's getting too cold, I'll close for a full 45 seconds, and then off duration, 120. So I'm going to close for a full 45 seconds, and then I'm only going to wait 2 minutes, and then I will see, where are we at? So it'll be a little bit of a more aggressive closing, and then a shorter idle time before I'm checking that temperature again, just to make sure that if the temperature is dropping really quickly, that we get to it and we keep closing those curtains and make sure that our inside temp will rise back up into that idle band where we want it to be. Hopefully that makes sense. If you're confused with how this works, there's a great image in the user manual. And also, you can always leave a comment in the comment section down below, and I would be happy to explain things more. Okay, so after we do our on and off duration, we've got that idle band. So this, right now, we've got it set at 2 degrees. So that means 2 degrees plus or minus on our set point is where it's just going to be happy with that temperature. If you want a tighter idle band, you could adjust it down a bit, but I would recommend, can go all the way up to 10 degrees. I would recommend not making it too tight. Probably about 1.5 degrees is the tightest that you'd want to go. Really depends on what you're doing, and you'll know best for your application though. So once we've set that, then really the only other piece of setting for the operation of the control is going to be our heater set point. So that's simple enough. When the temperature goes below the set point, our heater's going to turn on. So this one, again, we can just adjust it down maybe 76 degrees. Once it's below 76 degrees, we want that heater to go on. Save that. And then we've got a few more settings. We've got our high alarm setting. If the temperature goes above this, it's going to trigger that alarm relay. And if you've connected some sort of alarm device to that relay, then that's going to go off. So that's simple enough. Low alarm, same sort of idea, just with a low temperature. And then hysteresis. So this one right now is set to 2 degrees, and the hysteresis, that's the amount of overshoot that our heater is going to do. So with a 2 degree hysteresis, and our heater set point was set to, did I set it to 74? I forget, but let's just say I set it to 74 degrees. If the temperature drops below 74 degrees, then our heater is going to turn on. It's not going to just heat up to 74 degrees though. With a hysteresis of 2.0, it's going to heat up to 76 degrees, and then it's going to turn off. So that's what that hysteresis means. So that, again, you can adjust that depending on how far above your set point you want your heater to stay on. And that's your heater set point specifically. Then we've got the unit in here. We can determine if we are in Fahrenheit or Celsius. Pretty simple stuff. And then finally, the sensor option. You can enable the sensor if you want to. And that is if you have the optional rain sensor attached. And if you have the rain sensor attached, how that works is that that's going to detect rainfall. And if it does, then it is going to close your curtains all the way. It's going to bypass your on duration or your off duration. It's just going to close your curtains all the way. And then it will need 15 minutes of detecting no rain for it to return back to normal operation. So that's how that rain sensor works, and that option is there if you want to use it. Then finally, let's talk a little bit about these manual overrides. And these can be useful once you've got things set up, or as you're setting things up, to make sure that you've got things set up correctly and that the equipment is operating as you want it to. So first of all, we've got our curtain overrides. If we go in here, right now we're in auto. We can go into override. And if we go into override, then we have the option, right now we're idling. If we go up, we can override it closed. It'll turn on that close relay and start closing your curtains. Or if we go down, you can start it opening them. So pretty simple there. You can switch between close, idle, and open for your curtains. And we'll just make sure that we switch into auto mode and then save that so that we are back into automatic mode. If we would stay in override, if we go back to the main menu, you can see here our LEDs are flashing because we are in override mode. So if you ever see that your LEDs are flashing, you've accidentally left yourself in override mode. We'll turn it back to auto. There we can see when it's in auto, now it's just doing its thing according to the temperature. So that was our curtain overrides. Then we've got our heat override. Same sort of dealio. We can go into override, override it on or off. And then same thing, I will save it back into auto once I'm done. Then we've got alarm. If you want to test out your alarm system, we can override our alarm on or off. Easy enough. Then our final override menu is the temperature test override menu. So if we go into test, then we've got our temp. If we go into there, here we can override the temperature sensor. And so you can see what your curtains would do at a certain temperature, or as the temperature rises or falls, you can take a look at how your curtains would operate. So that's a really neat way of seeing real world as temperature adjusts, how are your curtains going to adjust. As well, in here, there is a sub menu here. We can actually as well, if we would scroll down from temperature, we can go to factory, which allows us, if we went yes and then hit the check mark, that would allow us to do a factory reset and restore our factory defaults. I don't want to do that, so I'll just back out. And yeah, so those are the two options for you within this test menu. You can do the temperature override or the factory restore. And then finally, the final menu is our version menu. If we go in here, we can display what our current version is. So here we can see we're at version 1.14. Or if we want to, we can update our version. Like I say, we aren't really releasing new updates for this control at this time, but we have the option there. If a new update does come out and you want to update it, then that would be the menu where you would do that. To update your unit, you can put your USB with the update into the USB socket on the back of the display, and then go into our update menu here, select yes, hit the check mark, and it'll restart the control and run that update. And from there, you can see we'll loop back down to the set point menu, which is where we started these settings. So that is how you program and control the NVC-2. That'll do it for this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.